Okay, welcome. Another minute and a half or so, we'll get started. Just want to make sure everything's connected. Oh, Dinka's there. Hello, Dinka. Yeah, you heard a cat. That's my cat squalling around in the background there. Cat's name is Shadow. Okay, let's start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Okay, so today we're concluding the series on the Mahanama Sutta from the Gutta Nikaya Book of Elevens. It's the Buddha's discourse to the layman Mahanama, in which Mahanama, to paraphrase the text, he basically said, "I'm a busy man. What do you suggest I do for my practice?" And the Buddha gave him 5 mental states to cultivate, which are the same as the 5 faculties. And he gave him 6 contemplations, things to bear in mind or contemplate. And those are contemplation of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, contemplation of virtue, contemplation of generosity, and the final one, which we're doing today, is contemplation of devas, devanusati. And this is one that can be used very effectively as a formal meditation. It's a very powerful practice for elevating and brightening the mind, by aligning oneself to higher states of consciousness. And it's one that in this sutta the Buddha particularly recommended to a lay practitioner, which I thought was an interesting point. So it isn't something that's meant to be esoteric or reserved only for bhikkhus. The idea behind the anusati as a meditation is is different than meditation on the breath, say, or vipassana meditation. It's anusatis are meditations that use skillfully the faculties of thought and imagination, and you try to discipline and control the mind, that for the period of the meditation, the thoughts and the imagination and the visualization is directed towards a theme, whether it's the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dharma, qualities of the Sangha, or in this case, contemplating the devas. Now, this to practice this meditation effectively would require some prior knowledge of the deva realms as a guide for moving through these different states. Excuse me. The traditional way of doing it is to visualize each of the Deva realms in turn, from the Chatu Maharajika realm up to the first Brahma realm, the realm of Mahabrahma. So there's 6 sensual heavens and 1 Brahma world. It can be extended to include, on the lower end, you could include the Bhuma Devas, and on the higher end, you could go through the other Brahma worlds and the formless abidings. So it's flexible how you do it. So let's talk a little bit about the different Deva realms. First of all, what is a Deva? A Deva is a class of being in the Buddhist cosmological system, a class of being that is on a plane above that of the humans. Humans, in many respects, have the most fortunate abiding, because it is in this human realm that we have the greatest chance to hear the Dhamma and the greatest chance to attain Nibbana. But in terms of long life, in terms of happiness and majesty and beauty and luminosity, etc., the Devas surpass the humans. They live a very long time. The word Deva, the origin of the word is doubtful. It can come possibly from one of 2 different roots. It either means, then, if we look at it etymologically, it either derives from the luminous ones, the shining ones, or it could derive from a root meaning to play or to enjoy, the ones who enjoy their existence. The first 6 Deva realms are still considered to be within the realm of sense desire. They have sensuality in terms of food and music and dancing, and also sexual relations. Beyond that higher realm, the Brahma worlds are considered to be part of the realm of form. They've transcended sensuality. They're not divided into genders. There are no male and female there. And they don't eat in the ordinary way. They feed on bliss. And their consciousness is considered to be an equivalent to the mind in jhana. And as we go through the 6 sensual Deva realms, we find an increasing refinement, increasing subtilization. It's a gradual elevation of consciousness to go through contemplating these different realms. Even below the first actual realm of the Devas, there are the earthly Devas, or Bhuma Devas. These are beings that dwell on the earth, particularly in forests and remote places, often associated with trees, when they're called Ruka Devas. There's also a class of Devas that dwell in the clouds. They're called Walaka Devas. So in the Buddhist vision of the world is alive with Devas, as well as other magical creatures like Nagas, Upanas, Kumbhandas, and Kanaras. Nature is alive and teeming with these unseen beings. And it's a general rule that lower classes of beings cannot normally see higher classes of beings. So humans cannot normally see Devas, although Devas may choose to manifest, or humans with psychic powers can also see them. The first 2 of heavens of the sensual worlds, in the Pali is Saga, that we translate as heaven, the Dewa realms. The first two are located on Mount Sinaru, in Sanskrit that's Sumeru, the central world mountain that was part of the mythical geography of the earth, that there's this enormous mountain in the middle. And the mountain is 84,000 yojanas high. And if you convert that to modern measurements, it ends up being much higher than the modern scientific estimate of the distance between the Earth and the Moon. So this is an enormous mountain, okay? And it dominates the geography of the world, and it's right at the center. And we're living on Jambudipa, one small island off in the ocean far away from the mountain. The first sensual heaven, the Chatumaharajika world, which translates as the realm of the four great kings, is located halfway up the mountain and is presided over by four powerful dewas, the kings of the four directions, east, north, south, and west. And there are many lesser dewas that dwell in this level as well. They live in mansions. They're luminous. They have parks and gardens. Their enjoyment is surpasses that of the human. But these are the very lowest of the dewas, and they are prone to some defilement, in that although they normally live a very long time, many thousands of years, their lives can be cut short in one of a few ways. One way is called the corruption of mind. And what that refers to is the dewa's existence is so precarious. You might say, to use an analogy, you might say they're vibrating at such a high frequency. So they're very fragile in some sense, that if they miss a single meal, and their food is this exquisite Sudabhojana, this ambrosia, if they miss a single meal, then they'll pass away. And they can also be destroyed in a similar way by the passion of envy. If they see another dewa that has greater enjoyment than them, a bigger chariot or more dancing girls or what have you, they can become overcome with anger and jealousy, and then this burns them up, and they're also destroyed. Besides this, they are also in a constant state of war, intermittent war with the asuras, demonic beings that live at the base of the mountain and keep swarming up the sides, trying to take over the realm of the dewas. So this first level, Chatu Maharajika, doesn't escape completely many of the corruptions of the earth. Then we go up higher to the peak of the mountain. There's a flat plain at the very peak of the mountain, and this is the Tawatingsa heaven, the realm of the 33 great gods. And this realm is one that is most described in the texts by far. It has the most attention is given to the Tawatingsa dewas. They're given the number of 33 ruling dewas, although there are countless throngs of lesser dewas. There's a council of ruling dewas of 33 presided over by King Saka, who is the same entity as the Vedic god Indra. and this is even specifically identified in the text, that it says that Saka is Inda. Inda is the Pali version of Sanskrit Indra. These gods live even longer. They are even more luminous and more beautiful, more refined, and their pleasures are more exquisite. They're still somewhat grounded on the earth, although at the very peak and summit of Mount Sinaru, they still would be considered terrestrial in that sense. And they're not totally immune from the wars with the Asuras, because sometimes the Asuras manage to break the line of the Chatu Maharajaga and come swarming up towards Tawatingsa, which is their real goal. It's possible for Devas at this level to hear the Dhamma, and the Buddha and the Arahants like Moggallana occasionally visited this realm and discoursed to the Devas, and Saka in the Buddha's lifetime attained to Sotapanna. But it is more difficult for Devas because of the great distraction of their pleasurable existence. They don't really feel dukkha the way we do, so they don't feel they tend to not feel an urgency. They live in vimanas, which are mansions or palaces that float in the air. They can transport them by the force of their will, fly through the air in their vimanas. There are various classes of lesser devas that dwell among them as servants and entertainers, particularly the Gandhabas or musicians and the acharas or dancing girls. So, in a sense, it's like an indulgence in sense pleasures for a very long time. Then, if we go higher, then we transcend the boundaries of the earth, and we're now the other realms of the devas are in space above the earth. They're not connected to the earth in any physical way. And the first of these realms, the third Deva realm altogether, is called the Yama world. And this is the first world that's completely free of conflict, because they're removed from the Asura wars. So it's called the peaceful or the contented place. And as we go higher, each Deva realm, the entities have longer lifespans, and their pleasures are more refined and subtle and exquisite. You know? The only real explicit example that found in the text is, and this is from the commentaries, and it's also found in the Sarvastavadan Abhidharma Kosha, is the nature of sexual relations in these different realms. In the first two realms, the realms that are still connected to the earth, the males and females make love in a way similar to humans, except that the male doesn't emit any fluid because they do not reproduce sexually. In the Yama world, there's no longer any penetration. There's merely embracing and fondling. And then as you go higher in the next realm, they only hold hands and gaze into each other's eyes. And in the fifth and sixth realm, there's no physical contact at all. They merely gaze into each other's eyes and experience a energetic contact in that way. And we could assume by analogy that all the other type of sense pleasures, the food and the music and the gardens and so on, are increasingly subtilized as you go up, so become more and more refined, less coarse and gross than the realms below. So there's a gradual attenuation of sensuality, even while it becomes more pleasurable. It's also attenuated and it becomes more ethereal or spiritual until it's finally transcended altogether in the Brahma worlds. So to return to the tour of the worlds, after the Yama world, which is number 3, then there's the Tusita realm, and this is a special place because this is the realm where the Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, always dwells before taking a human birth. So a Bodhisattva will go through many, many lifetimes of perfecting the paramis, the spiritual qualities, with great struggle and difficulty. And then when all 10 paramis have reached a state of perfection, he's ready for Buddhahood. But before he becomes incarnated as a human being and becomes a Buddha, he spends one last lifetime in this heaven world of Tusita. And the Gautama Buddha was there before his birth as a human. And currently in Tusita heaven is Maitreya Buddha waiting for his turn. Well, he's not Maitreya Buddha yet, but the being who will become Maitreya Buddha. So this Tusita realm has a particular will attend on the Bodhisattva and he'll discourse to them. So this becomes a favored destination for rebirth for many Buddhists. They aspire to be reborn into Tusita heaven in the presence of the Bodhisattva if they don't make it to Nibbana in this lifetime. The 5th heaven is called the Nimanarati world. This is the world of those who delight in creation. And this is a special place also in that the Devas who dwell there have the power of creating anything they wish just with their mind. Reality there is entirely fluid. They make their own existence there. So in a sense, it's like living in for many, actually millions of years by this point, existence in a very powerful, very lucid dream. No point of reality is fixed for them. They create everything they wish and live in a very fluid universe. The final realm is Wasiwati Nimanarati, the beings who delight in the creation of others. These beings don't even have to use their mind to create what they want. It's created for them by the beings in the realm below. So they live an entirely kind of effort-free, pleasurable existence. The name Wasawati indicates that they're considered to have power or mastery. These are the highest. This is the highest point of the sensual world, and these beings that dwell here live in a very subtle existence that's almost beyond sensuality. And we can see this with the, as I mentioned before, about the sexual union of the beings here. The male and female merely gaze into each other's eyes. So this is much more subtle than anything that goes on in realms below. There's a particular portion of this realm, which is the domain of Mara, the tempter. It's said that he rules 1/4 of the Wasawati realm like a rebel prince. So his particular place is in this realm. So he's a very high level Dewa. So these are the realms of sensuality. And the way the meditation of contemplation of Devas is laid out in the Suddhimagga, we go one step further. We also contemplate the realm of Brahma. When you enter the realm of Brahma, you've crossed a major threshold. You've transcended such sensuality altogether. So there's no division into sexes. There's no male and female. They're all just reckoned as beings. There's no taking of food. They exist on jhanic energy. They're extremely long-lived, extremely luminous. The great Brahma, the ruler of this realm, Mahabrahma, said he can light up a whole world system with a single finger. They're not necessarily, and most of them are not, as we would say, awakened or enlightened. They're not subject to the defilements of sensuality or anger or ill will. They've transcended those, but they are subject to defilements of pride, of desire for power, of being, kind of arrogance. And there's a number of references to this in the suttas. The most revealing text in this regard is probably the text where the Buddha goes up to the realm of a Brahma called Baka and has a confrontation with him because of a deep connection from past lives. The Buddha, out of compassion, he went to try and free Baka from his erroneous false views. Baka thought himself to be the supreme deity of the universe. So this is the first Brahma world, and the geography, let's say, or the cosmology of the Brahma worlds is complex, but it can be simplified into the 4 levels corresponding to the 4 jhanas. And the first level of Brahmas is corresponding to first jhana, where there is still thought and applied and sustained thought. There's still thought conception and speech. So an interesting point here is that when we have any stories about Brahma gods acting in the world or interacting with other beings, or given names and individual characters, it's always this first level. As we go higher in the Brahma worlds, the beings are basically, they're beyond thought conception. So they're basically, you would say, blissed out all the time. So they don't do anything. They don't really interact or with other levels, or there's really no stories about them. There's one kind of partial exception for the second level. The second level are the Abhisara beings, which the name means the bright or luminous ones. They're corresponding to second jhana, and their predominant mental state is one of rapturous bliss. And excuse me, the one kind of partial exception to this point about no individuation in or stories, narratives about the Brahma gods of the second, third, and fourth level is that it was the Abhisara beings who fell to earth and originally founded the human race in the Aganya Sutta. But this is only really a partial exception, because by the time they began interacting with earth, they'd already fallen to some degree from their native state of Brahma gods, of Abhisara gods. The third level is the Subhakina, corresponding to third jhana, and this is marked by oceanic peaceful bliss. Whereas the rapture of the second level can be ecstatic and exciting, thrilling. This is just a deep, profound, blissful peace. And this is said to be the happiest state of existence anywhere in the cosmos is the Subhakina realm, or third Brahma world. The fourth level is Vehapala, or the realm of great fruit, where the predominant mental state is equanimity. There's a profound peacefulness. These are at the very summit of embodied existence, and they contemplate the whole universe below, and they're so long-lived, they see whole world systems coming and going, rising and falling. So they naturally have an equanimity, because everything sort of balances out in the big picture, and they're just peacefully abiding in their summit. There are also, besides these, there are the Pure Lands that are abodes where only anagamis go. That's sort of another side direction. You know, the realms of the pure abodes, and they're considered even higher than the Brahma worlds. And beyond all of this, in cosmological terms, outside of all of this are the formless abidings, of the four of them, where beings dwell who have no bodies. They're pure mind. So they're not located in space. They're not. You can't really say they're anywhere. You can't really say they're nowhere. The space doesn't apply to them. Except the first one is this realm of boundless space, so it has obviously some connection to space, but the subsequent ones do not. The realm of boundless consciousness, the realm of nothingness, and the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. So that's a very brief summary of the different realms, and I kind of concentrated on the ones that are applicable to this meditation. The Devanusati is done by visualizing, contemplating it, trying. I would say that the best approach is to try and imagine being there. What is it? What is the state of being, of existence, of consciousness, of a being dwelling in Tawatingsa or Tusita? And to begin with the lower realms and move up to the Brahma realm, and then bring the mind back down through the realms again, as many times as you want. This is as I said, it's a very good meditation for brightening and expanding consciousness, elevating consciousness. And it's something the Buddha recommended in this particular sutta as a practice for the layman Mahanama. So I'll stop there and deal with questions at this time. So if you have questions, as usual, just type them into the chat, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. Okay, the first question, he's quoting it directly from the text of the Sudimagga. When those beings passed away from here, they were reborn there because their faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom. I too have the same kind of faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom. Can you explain the Buddha's words that he has the same kind of characteristics? I think you're misreading the text slightly. I don't think the intention is to say the Buddha is, although the Buddha does have those characteristics in supreme degree. I think it's like an indirect quote. It's what the meditator is supposed to call to mind. That they're supposed to recall to mind their own good qualities that could lead them into a rebirth in the Dewa realm as a point of connection to the Dewas. Some of the devas who were in existence during the Buddha's life must have passed on since. Is this so? And do you have any comment on a deva turnover and its impact on the longevity of the Buddha sasana? Well, Buddhists have devas have a very, very long lifespan. So some of the devas, probably most of the devas, let's say, who were in existence in the Buddhist time, would still be in existence as devas today. Some would have passed on, and some of those would have taken rebirth in the human world. Uh, the Dewa turnover, as you put it, depends to a large degree on the quality of morality in the human world, and this is mentioned in more than one occasion. That in the constant war between the Asuras and the Devas get the upper hand when humans are well behaved and ethical, because more humans will be reborn as Devas and swell their numbers. And if humans are rough and ill-mannered and ill-behaved, they're more likely to be reborn as Asuras and increase the numbers of that demonic host. I think the longevity of the Buddha sasana does not depend so much on the devas as on humans. Freud's buddy said he believed in God because of an oceanic feeling. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't know what who you're referring to. Who Freud's buddy was? Was that Jung? Do you believe these realms actually exist? Do you believe this human realm actually exists? And if so, in what way? In what manner? It's sort of a naive question to even ask, because you have to presuppose some meaning of what is reality. But a short answer, yeah, I do believe there are other realms higher than human. Are jhanas and Brahma worlds considered planes of existence? The Brahma worlds are planes of existence, and the jhanas are states of mind that are a equivalent, or have some close equivalency to the state of mind of the Brahma worlds. In the Abhidhamma, the chittas that are recognized as first, second, third, and fourth jhana exist either as an attainment or an existence. That is, either as a jhana or as a Brahma being. Although the sutta does not allude to propitiation of devas, is it appropriate, wholesome, or even efficacious at all to do so? I don't think it can hurt, as long as one doesn't become superstitious or obsessive about it. Certainly, in Buddhist countries like Thailand, there's it's commonly done that you see these spirit houses all over Thailand, which are really for making small offerings of rice or incense to local devas. It's really not directly a part of Buddhist practice, but it's not really contrary to it either, I would think. Could any of us humans listening now have been in one of these Dewa realms in previous life? If so, one of the Dewa realms more likely than another? Yeah, it's quite possible that that many of us have had existence in the Dewa realms. And as far as one being more likely than the other, just kind of statistically, the lower realms would be more likely than the higher, because it's kind of a general rule. It's stated in the Samyutta Nikaya as a kind of a general rule that the higher realms are more fewer in number. The number of beings there are fewer in number than the lower realms. Are Dewas at all interested in humans, or are we like ants to them? Um, they're generally not really interested in us. There's actually a couple of places at the sites that they find us kind of gross and disgusting. We smell bad. They don't like our odor. Uh, so we're gross corporeal beings. They're much more refined and subtle. Uh, on the other hand, they do take some interest in some of the Dewas, not all of them by any means, but some of them do take an interest in the Dhamma. So there's a number of stories about Dewas interacting with bhikkhus in remote places, and the Buddha, of course, and the great arahants would frequently interact with Dewas. But in general, that we're not of an interest to them. Is this classification of realms based on the state of mind and body of the beings dwelling in them beyond space and time, or is just this specific world system we are in? What I mean are these human, cats, petas, dewas in each and every world system for infinite time, and there are no beings outside this specific classification. Thank you. Oh, that's an interesting question. There's a number of angles to this. It's certainly the case that um, the cosmological model includes an infinite number of world systems, and they're generally depicted as being very similar. And each one has a Mount Sineru in the center, and each one has Dewa realms above. And the Brahma worlds are actually above that. They would incorporate thousands of world systems below them. On the other hand, the classification system is actually a lot less rigid than it appears in short summaries. Generally, you'll see if people talk about the Buddhist classification of beings, they'll talk about like five jatis, or five types of birth, or um, what is it, 31 or 33 realms of existence. But when you get into the actual details, there's all kinds of cases that fall through the cracks that don't really, for example, yakas. Yakas are like ogres or monstrous beings. They don't really fit into either, any of the five broad categories. And there are many, many other cases like this as well. When there's texts that talk about the Dewas, like in the Mahasamaya Sutta, that has a long list of different kinds of Dewas, some of them are hard to classify into the standard system. So I think that the actual reality is much more complex and various than any simple classification scheme would indicate. So other worlds might be quite different from ours, but I think there's still going to always be a range of consciousness. Do Dewas have the same set of precepts as we do? Can they lie, kill, steal, intoxicate themselves, or commit sexual misconduct? Well, the precepts are really universal, and the Dewas generally keep a pretty good morality, although they, at least in the first couple of levels, they sometimes can become prone to intoxication. There's some kind of a plant that's said to grow in the garden in Tawatingsa that only flowers once every 100 years, and the Dewas seek it out, and if they make a brew out of the leaf of the petals of those flowers and drink it, they'll swoon into a pleasant kind of dopey state that lasts for years and years. Where would you place gods like Wotan and the Norse gods in this hierarchy? It's another good question. Um, I'm convinced that the Tawatingsa level of heaven is the same level as the Norse gods and the Greek gods. And this makes historical sense because the Indian the Vedic Indians, which is the root of the Buddhist system, the Vedic Indians, the Norsemen, and the Hellenes or Greeks were all Aryans. They all came from the Aryan migrations. So I think this pantheon was common, and it's very, very old. It's primeval, but it developed different variations in different countries. So Saka is the equivalent of he's a sky god, and he blasts in India, particularly the predecessor of Saka would blast wrongdoers with his lightning bolt. So he's the equivalent of Zeus or of Thor. There's also one of the Buddhist gods, Wesakama, who is the smith or architect of the gods, which would be the equivalent of Vulcan. So and all of these pantheons live on top of mountains or in high places, and they're at war with or have been at war with um, rough demonic beings, asuras, titans, or frost giants. You can see a very strong family resemblance, and I think it's at this particular level, the Tawatingsa level. How do you know that one is in second jhana? Is the appearance of light with bliss a sign? Um, if there's an absence of of defilement at that time, so no sense desire, no ill will, and also in second jhana there's no thought conception, so thinking processes ceased altogether, and there should be a blissful feeling. So it can be kind of hard to diagnose, and one shouldn't, while one is in that state, one shouldn't, because that'll bring you out of it for sure very quickly if you start trying to analyze it at that time. Do you think that the most conflictive and envious people were asuras in their recent past life? That could be very, very true. So the nature of asuras are to seek power. They love conflict. They're prone to conflict and anger and jealousy. People like that could be either on their way into the asura realm or just fallen out of the asura realm. If one was in a formless realm, had no body and no thoughts, and could go into a person's body and experience what they were experiencing, which of the formless realms would that be? The beings in formless realms don't do that. They don't occupy people's bodies. There are stories about yakas doing that, but a formless being would um, have absolutely no interest in that, or even probably awareness of physicality. So it doesn't really apply to them. Is it possible to list the Sutta reference in regards to the Buddha recommending this practice? Yes. And Guru Nikaya, Book of Elevens, and it's the 11th sutta in the Book of Elevens. Roman Roland was Freud's friend. Okay, I don't know him. Never heard of him. Do they always remember their past lives if they were previously human? Do they know what it's like to be human? It's said that the Devas generally remember the one immediately previous life, and very often they'll recall what karma they did as a human that led them to be reborn as a Deva. So they would have some sense of what it is to be human, and they generally, unless they're very wise and they're practicing the Dhamma or seeking the Dhamma, they generally regard a human birth as with horror. You know, we're so short-lived and we're prone to disease and all this other stuff. They don't want it. Hypothetical question, if I may. If I were to memorize something, perhaps a tune or a shape, so that I could bring it to mind clearly and effortlessly any time, even on my deathbed, would I still be able to remember it just as easily the next becoming? Possibly. There is actually a recommendation that the Buddha actually, can't recall I think it's in the Samyutta Nikaya. I can't recall the exact reference, but the Buddha one time was talking about the benefits of learning Dhamma, meaning memorizing passages of Dhamma, because it was all orally transmitted at the time. When one is has well memorized the passage of Dhamma, it can return to one's mind if one is reborn in the Deva realm, and it can be a guide. Do you think Deva realms are mirages or traps to keep being seduced and deluded by the imperfection of samsara? No more or less than this realm is. Why do we need to practice Devanasati? Is it because we were receiving their favors? Or because of their similarity to jhana? May be well. It's not really. We're not really trying to curry favor with the Devas by doing this practice. We're trying to elevate our own consciousness so we experience more subtle states of consciousness. And also in relation to the Brahma worlds, it can be an aid to attainment of jhana by approaching it from a different angle, by imagining what it's like to be a being in one of those realms. Is it possible a stream mentor would have 7 lifespans as a Brahma? Yeah, I suppose that is possible. That would be a very, very long hiatus, but yeah, that would be. Are Deva realms a stepping stone of sorts? Possibly, although you can fall. Being born in a Deva realm is no guarantee of further progress. One can be reborn in a Deva realm and then fall to a lower realm afterwards. I believe you mentioned in a video that Brahmas can conjure up sensual experience just like we can conjure jhanas. Yes, sort of. The meaning there is that when we say that the default mode of Brahma consciousness is equivalent to jhana, at least the first level Brahmas, they can, if they, it's not that they're conjuring up sensual experience, they don't have any desire for sensuality. But if they turn their attention to doings and goings on in the lower realms, then their consciousness is, by necessity, at that moment, is a sensual level consciousness. It doesn't mean that they have sensual desire, but it's a technical description of their level of their frequency they're vibrating at, you might say. A dying Deva must experience a huge amount of suffering because of being separated from his pleasure. I wonder what percentage of Devas are studying and practicing Dhamma regularly. I gather from the descriptions that very few Devas are actually, there's some, but very few that are actually taking interest in Dhamma. And they do at the very end experience some suffering and fear. They don't experience physical suffering the same way we do. Their deaths are quite easy physically, but uh, they are kind of brought up. It's like the reality is suddenly hitting them in the face after partying for 10 million years. They say, "Oh, I'm going to die." Um, so one of the things they're recommended amongst themselves to do when they're dying is to go to the Nandana Grove and to die there. This beautiful garden and park. It's supposed to be more peaceful. No, it's not 610 Mahanama Sutta. It's 1111. There's two suttas in which or more than two. I think there's another one in the Samyutta as well, where Mahanama appears as a character. But the one I'm citing here is from the Book of Elevens. So it's 1111. Dear Ajahn, I cannot understand how it is the name of the next Buddha is already known. Despite the fact that Buddhism rejects determinism, only deterministic will that would be possible to accurately see future events and describe them with precision, wouldn't it? Thank you. Well, the Buddhists their career follows a very archetypal pattern, and the prediction of the Buddha's name and many other details about his life, such as his chief disciples and so on, is made many aeons ago when he first enters the Bodhisattva path. The Buddha Dipankara made these predictions about Gautama Buddha. I predict that in the future you will be a Buddha with the name of Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama, and your two chief disciples will be Moggallana and Sariputta, etc., etc. I don't think this implies necessarily a rigid determinism of everything, but that there is an archetypal, almost a kind of necessity of unfoldment in the career of Buddhas. Is the identity of the Bodhisattva known to the Devas in Tavatimsa? If not, it must be quite an intriguing curiosity for the inhabitants there and topic of speculation. I get the is known to the inhabitants because when the time comes for him to be reborn, the other Devas come and assemble around him and say, "It is time, Venerable Sir, it is time for you to complete your career as a Buddha." Should we imagine classes of beings like devas and humans as rough descriptions about a mode of experience that can arise in the mind? No, I don't. I reject a kind of strictly psychological interpretation. I think our states of mind are reflections of possibilities of other levels of being. I think that sort of the metaphor should go the other way. How can one function in society without appearing weird when one doesn't have much kilesa left? Should one enter monkhood? Yeah, well, you could always do that. Also, if you're concerned about appearing weird, that then you're attached to. Oh, I never heard that before. That's definitely not a belief in theravada. The descriptions of the Deva dying is that he has five signs that appear shortly before his death to warn him. Let's see if we can remember all five. His garlands fade, his garments become wrinkled and soiled, his armpits sweat, he becomes restless on his seat. Can't remember the fifth one offhand, but it's a similar sort of vein of just sort of. Oh, his luster fades, his luminosity. So it's not like a human being dying from some long lingering disease. It's just like a few slightly unpleasant warning signs, and then they pass away as the way they were in the end. They pass away the way they were born. They just disappear, poof, out of existence. Is there anything you can mention in regards to devas being related to moon or water? I've read somewhere about some beings dying or burning up in their existence at the realization they're not immortal. Um, the sun and the moon are said to be inhabited by devas as well. They're at the same level as the two Maharajika devas. The water is a realm inhabited by nagas. And although there's one little stanza of verse that describes acharas, or a low class of female devas uh, living on the crest of waves, ocean waves. I don't recall any story about devas dying or burning up at the realization they're not immortal, but there is a reference to when the Buddha preaches impermanence to the devas, many of them tremble in fear because it's the first time they realize that they're not immortal. How do devas obtain their names? They're spontaneously reborn. There's no clear mother or father to provide a given name. Well, that's intriguing. I actually never thought of that before. They're not all. They sometimes do have a parental relationship. It doesn't seem to be universal, but it's possible because there is mention of Deva sons and daughters, and it's said in the commentary just explains it as saying that a Deva, when he appears or he or she appears sitting on the lap of their mother or father, and then they have a relationship after that as parent and child. So in those cases, I suppose the parent can name them. Otherwise, I'm not sure. Maybe they just make their own names up. Is Mara interested in preventing his fellow devas from achieving higher attainment? Mara is principally interested in preventing anyone from escaping the realm of sensuality. So he doesn't really care whether you're in heaven or in hell, as long as you're not escaping existence. The characters of samsara are predetermined, like president of a country. What changes in a being who inhabits such form? Maybe I'm wrong here. What's your opinion? Yeah, that's actually a good point, and it's kind of a good analogy to a president or even a king. A being like Saka is more properly thought of as a title or an office. But when Saka comes to the end of his lifespan, a new Saka will arise and take his place. The same with Mara and all the other kind of major players in the Dewa realm. There's always going to be a Saka, but Saka is not immortal. When he passes away and dies from that existence, a new Saka will arise. Ajahn, your answer to my question got cut off. Please tell me what my attachment is. I'm afraid to appear weird. I'm not afraid per se, but society views spiritual people as strange. Well, you're attached to the worldly dhammas of name and reputation and praise and blame. If one were completely enlightened, those wouldn't matter to the person. But also, on the other hand, I went on to say that you can live as a layperson, keeping the precepts and having a spiritual practice without appearing strange. You can still be, if you present yourself properly, you can be an inspiration to others. Okay, I think we're running. I'm running out of steam here. Actually, answering so many questions is good. You're so interested. The last one I'll answer. The last one is it easier for humans to escape than than devas, escape samsara. Yes, as generally it is. And the reason is because the human realm is kind of at a midpoint between extreme suffering and extreme pleasure. We have some pleasure and some suffering. Um, Beings in the lower realms, they're too immersed in fear and misery that they can't, they have no room or psychic room to move, to attain anything, or realize anything. And in the Dewa realms, they don't feel any urgency because life is just so long and pleasant. Oh yeah, I'll get to it next 1,000 years. Kind of enjoying myself in the garden right now. Humans, our lives are relatively short, and for like all humans have some degree of suffering in their life, uh, but for most humans, it's not so much as in the lower realms, so they're not overwhelmed by it. There's still some degree of leisure and psychic space to be able to make changes. So I think I'll leave it there, and we'll come back next week. I'll start a new series. I haven't decided on anything particular yet. And goodbye.